Good afternoon. Welcome to the Winchester Multicultural Network's second Winchester in Transition Community Conference, WIT 2013. We are delighted each of you is here and want to acknowledge that many of our representatives are also here, including State Senator Catherine Clark. As I mention your name, could you stand and just give a wave? Thank you very much. State Representative Jason Lewis. Board of Selectmen members Jennifer Wilson, Doug Marmon, Tom Howley, and also the school committees represented, the planning board's represented, the schools are represented. We have a lot of people who are listening to what all of us will be saying. I'm not Saul Gettleman, by the way. My name is Phil Coonley, a 37-year resident of Winchester. I'm a relatively new member of the current 19-member network board. Since all the other board members are especially active and many have key network leadership roles, giving me the honor of welcoming you must reflect the network's commitment to inclusion of all. The Winchester Multicultural Network began in 1991. Our mission is to promote the recognition, understanding, and appreciation of diversity, to advocate for each and every person's civil rights, to confront intolerance. On August 6, 2012, the Winchester Board of Selectmen adopted the following human rights statement. Winchester is a community that is grounded in respect for every individual and therefore protects all residents, employees, business owners, students, and visitors in the enjoyment and exercise of human and civil rights. It is town policy to ensure equal treatment and opportunity to all individuals, regardless of race, gender identity, ethnicity, religion, ideology, socioeconomic status, health, sexual orientation, age, military status, or disability. This statement is in the back of your program. To help realize the Selectmen's vision of a truly inclusive town and to celebrate the network's 20th anniversary, last year on February 11th, we had our first WIT conference right here. Over 150 residents from different backgrounds gathered here to address 10 challenging issues. Throughout the day, all here were encouraged to keep in mind enriching multicultural transitions occurring within our town. And we benefited as many shared experiences and raised awareness of the opportunities to improve life in our community. This year's conference will focus on 4 emerging themes from last year's conference: stress, accessibility, class, and changing demographics. To facilitate the dialogue on these themes, we have an illustrious team. Judith Ellen of Transcending Consultants, if you could stand and give a wave, thank you very much. Paula Panadian of Worldview Services. Paula Amer, Associate Professor of Sociology and Director of Africa and the New World at Tufts University. And Dr. Bert Push, who is graciously replacing Barbara Chandler for the accessibility section. More clear information about each of these expert facilitators is in your program. Facilitators, for giving of your expertise this Sunday afternoon as we again come together to build a stronger, resilient, and inclusive community, we thank you. I also want to introduce Marianne DeBasi, our event planner. Here's Marianne. She has 22 years of corporate experience. She's highly sought after as a coach, consultant, and public speaker. She's the editor of Disability Issues, a quarterly newsletter. She has an awesome website, disabilityvisibility.com. We are so lucky we had her. Our lead sponsor today is Community Health Network Area 15, or CHNA 15. CHNA 15 was initiated in 1992 by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. CHNA's vision is that each and every community will be a safe and supportive environment that empowers community members to develop self-esteem and personal responsibility, to make positive and healthy life choices. Thank you, CHNA 15, for making WIT 2013 a reality. We also thank the Winchester Disability Access Commission. Ian Costas, the town's Disability Access Coordinator, could you stand for us? Is she here? She's not here yet, she's on her way. And the Winchester School of Chinese Culture for their generous support. I know Jennifer Zhang is here. She's Director of Outreach. Could you stand? Thanks, Jennifer. In addition to our generous sponsors, we have 30 town organizations that have partnered with us in having this community conference. They are listed in the program. Every one of those organizations has to have a manageable focus, but none of them are parochial when it comes to trying to serve the broader community. Thank you, partner organizations. A major achievement and milestone of the network's 21st year was selecting our first executive director from among several truly outstanding applicants. So it is with great pleasure I introduce to you Catherine Ann Hart, Executive Director for the Winchester Multicultural Network. Most recently, Kathy Ann was the Director and Assistant General Counsel at AIDS Action Committee of Massachusetts, Inc. She has a JD from Harvard Law School, where she has fond memories of being a student attorney with the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau and a founder of a diversity task force. Prior to her advocacy work at AIDS Action, she was an associate in the corporate department of Ropes and Gray, LLP. At Ropes, Kathy Ann was an active member of the Attorneys of Color Group. After being an attorney with Ropes, she worked as a senior diversity consultant for Vernon Myers Consulting Group. Please welcome Kathy Ann.
Weird when I hear people say things about me. I'm like, that's me? When did I do all that? But thank you, Phil, and all the other dedicated volunteer leadership of the network. Phil sort of undersold himself at the beginning. Every member of our board and our community advisors really make this organization what it is today. I mean, it's surprising when any nonprofit lasts as long as 20 some odd years, and certainly one with volunteer leadership without sort of paid staff at the helm. So I applaud all the network volunteers who are here and who are not here today. And I joined the network in January, and I couldn't really believe my good fortune to have found such a dedicated, smart, fun group of folks who wanted me to work with them. Heck, these are people I would hang out with anyway. Folks who value inclusion and aren't afraid to say so and to do something about making it happen. For as far back as I can remember, when I was a child growing up on the island of Trinidad, I valued diversity and community. My maternal grandmother, who was born in Dominica, not the Dominican Republic, but the other island, had 16 children. She was a woman with a 5th grade education and a heart of gold, welcoming to any and every one. Her children intermarried across race, ethnicity, class, national origin, and socioeconomic status. So our family gatherings are very, very diverse. In my home today, my husband is Egyptian, my daughter is a mix of several ethnicities, as am I. My husband is Muslim, I'm Christian, so personally, I'm pretty much entrenched in cross-cultural dialogue all the time. In just about every organization that I've been in, and Phil mentioned a few of them, I've worked with leadership to figure out how we can make it a better place for everyone who had to work there or get goods and services from that organization. And whenever I did it, whether it was in the personal or professional arena, it was never alone. It was always with a team of folks who were as committed as I was to whatever we were working on. So I'm exceedingly grateful to see you all here, from those in government, those in the private sector, those who are students, those who are teachers, retired professionals, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, those who are or underemployed. Everyone in this community has the potential to add value. And we, as the Winchester Multicultural Network, value that. So no matter what hardships or tough spots or rough patches we may encounter as issues arise, even in those times or on those issues that seem to be pulling us apart, we will be better for it when we come together. At least that's been my experience. And working together as best we can, not setting aside our differences, but valuing them, appreciating them. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Saul Gitterman. He's a longtime resident of the Winchester community and a professor at Tufts University. You can read all about Saul in your program. There's a bio in there, a bio which includes being a recipient of several awards, including 2 Fulbrights. But in addition to what you read in the program, from what I've learned about Saul in conversations with him, is that this is a man who values the ways in which he's different himself, and likewise appreciates the same in others. Here's Saul.
They won't know anything about it. If I hold onto this podium very hard, it's because there should be a separate section for the elderly neurotic, which is what I would be going to. Every time I see a stage, I can't help but think at the time I was lecturing at school back home, and I walked off the stage, and they go back and pick me up. So I really get very nervous when I see a stage, but I'll hold on to this podium and not start walking around, because I'm a danger when I do to myself and everyone else. I am not the main course of these workshops. The workshops themselves are. I'm a very old hors d'oeuvre that you're going to get a little bit of an appetizer for, just to get your juices flowing. In that respect, let me offer you a Rip Van Winkle moment. Part fantasy, part fact. The reality began when in 1967, that's 46 years ago, the Gittlemans and their 3 young children left their university rental apartment in Medford, having purchased their first and only permanent home the year round. This was a 10-room, 5-bedroom stucco house on Fletcher Street in Winchester, near Wedge Pond, the tennis courts, and the cemetery. It seemed to offer us everything. The house was derelict, the owner having died, and the sale on behalf of the relatives had been turned over to a law firm in Wilmington, Massachusetts. The asking price was $31,500, a bit out of our range, and the mortgage rules required that we put down 20% of the purchase price. Since we had a total of $6,000 in savings, we plotted to offer $25,000, which would have left us with a $1,000 cushion in our bank account. It was our first bid anyway, and we did this in the spirit of practice, never expecting them to accept our really inadequate offer. Well, the call came from a lawyer after the weekend. The house was ours. When reality hit us, we hesitated for a moment and looked at each other. We had had some reservations even looking in Winchester. The town was almost totally white and very churchy. Cardinal Cushing had already gone on television and proclaimed that Winchester would be the Milton of the North Shore, a Catholic community of prosperity and faith. There were also 7 Protestant houses of worship within walking distance of our house, and Church Street seemed to take its name very seriously. Our colleagues at Tufts had told us not to look in Winchester, that we would not be shown certain areas of real estate, and that the real estate people would know that we were not Christian, and some parts of town would be out of bounds for us. Could we fit? But we then realized that we had found a house we could afford. The kids could walk to the Wyman School. It was a 10-minute commute to Tufts. And Fletcher Street, it turned out, was its own world, an academic enclave made up of faculty from 4 of the 40 colleges and universities within commuting distance to Winchester. We took the house, and 46 years later, we're still there. Those are the facts. Now the fantasy. It's February 1965. I'm waiting to buy gas at the Mobile station next to the Winchester Cinema on Main Street. By the way, the sign says gas, 30 cents a gallon. I fall asleep. I wake up 48 years later in a stall in Brugger's Bagel Store on a Saturday morning. The three kids behind the counter are Afro-American, South Asian, and white. The place is jumping, warm and crowded, with bagels of every shape and description. There are two families of South and East Asian extraction. One is smearing a lox-infused cream cheese onto one set of bagels. The other is sharing with the three children in a booth a jalapeno pepper salad with ham, bacon, and sausage. One of the customers is asking whether there is a pizza bagel. I slap myself in the face, go outside, walk a couple of blocks around town, past the Starbucks, which also looks like a mini United Nations, and ask myself, am I still in Winchester? Of course I am, but I know the years have changed just by looking at the price of gasoline. Whether people like it or not, whether the change has come too slowly or not, Winchester has been caught up in the same forces that make America what it is. Alexis de Tocqueville, nearly 200 years ago, said this country was different. He used this native French word, exceptionnel, to describe us. We mistranslated it to mean better. De Tocqueville just meant different. He pointed out that everyone, except the Native Americans who were being cruelly brutalized, came from somewhere else, overwhelmingly European, except for the black slaves who came in chains from Africa. He acknowledged that the country was clearly dominated by white European Protestants, who, he noted, at times showed little tolerance for each other. During his 3-week stay in Boston, he visited the monument to Mary Dyer, the Quaker woman who was hanged on the Boston Common in 1660 by intolerant Protestants, some of whom were Harvard graduates and were on the Harvard faculty. She was hanged because she was a Quaker. If Winchester had existed in the 17th century, there's no telling what kind of riots might have taken place along Church Street. American Protestants generally detested each other. Calvinists burned the houses of Huguenots in Worcester, drowned Baptists on the banks of the Charles, and they would certainly have done the same thing on the banks of the Aberjona. They formed their little religiously exclusive colleges: Congregationalist Harvard, Calvinist Yale, Baptist Brown, Evangelical Presbyterian Princeton, and Anglican William and Mary, just to keep their children and their parishioners away from each other. They accused each other of heresy and even witchcraft. The hanging of 20 innocent people in Salem in 1693 and 4 Quakers in Massachusetts colony was the natural outcome of faith gone mad. The devil was indeed loose in New England. The Protestants only stopped fighting with each other when Europe ran out of Protestant immigrants and the Irish Catholics arrived in the 1840s. They were described in the Boston press as, quote, maggots and vermin, unquote. But this is the great American paradox. Welcomed or not to these shores, these people keep coming, seeking a better life than the ones they left behind. And that has been the American story, the American paradox. People were unwelcomed, but they kept coming. Our motto as a nation has been, quote, be like us or else, unquote. And as each boatload of immigrants arrived, they struggled with those already here, learned their ways and eventually their language, and settled in. Initially, very few were welcomed. The Germans, still today, but perhaps not for long, the largest immigrant ethnic group in America, were despised because they wouldn't give up their language. As late as 1900, there were 60,000 school children being instructed in German-only public schools in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Texas. There were other immigrant groups that were not considered white, the biggest insult you could give anyone. First, the Irish, who were also Catholic. Then the Italians, whom the Irish hated, in spite of sharing their Catholic faith. And the Jews, who weren't even Christian. They were all hated, but they persisted and finally made it in America. Color of skin has always been part of the issue of manifest destiny, the God-given right of Europeans to conquer this land from sea to shining sea. The power that drove this country to its 19th century geographical triumphalism. And the next 50 or 100 years will be a challenge for Winchester and America. Because the Europeans are no longer the desperate, white, impoverished immigrants who came before. America shut its doors after 1920 when 2 Italian anarchists held up a paymaster in Braintree, Massachusetts. We slowly opened them again 50 years after the execution of Sacco and Vanzetti. And now we wrestle with the issue of who should be allowed onto our shores. But they will come, and they will be people of color. They will be black, brown, yellow, and some white. And eventually, they will all join this community. In our community particularly, some will be academics because of the extraordinary accessibility for them to their university jobs. They will be commuters to Boston because Winchester is in the Guinness Book of Records for having the 2 closest railroad stops in the world. But others might be waitstaff or owners of the now nearly dozen ethnic restaurants and food shops that bless this town. There will be issues to deal with that are reflected in the workshops today: stress, accessibility, class, and demographics. Nothing changes, and everything changes. Winchester, with its restaurants alone, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Thai, Italian, Greek, reflects the extraordinary diversity that this community is capable of. And there are even 2 bagel stores. Well, long live Bruegger's and Bagel Land. And long live the paradox of America and Winchester. Welcomed or not, legal or not, people will find a way to get here and learn to love it. Now let's get to the business of living together. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say that I always enjoy being in Winchester, and I felt like my 2 groups went very well. We talked a little bit about some of the statistics around stress in America, that there actually is a survey that happens every year, every 18 months, surveying various groups of Americans that deal specifically with stress, how we handle or how we don't handle stress. So that was really the core of our conversation, and I thought it was a great conversation. We talked a lot about what stress in multi-generational ways. So if you're someone who we call the mature, someone born before 1950, what are your stressors when compared to a Gen Xer or millennial, someone born after 1990? So as you can imagine, a very rich discussion.
That's fine, but I mean, what I was kept thinking is I was bouncing around from session to session and trying to integrate the sense of what stress might have to relate to living in Winchester, and realize that the level of stress has changed dramatically in the last 40 or 50 years as the town got better. The irony, the paradox, is that living in Winchester 40 or 50 years ago, when it was really quite ordinary, quite, many would say, mediocre. It was a mediocre school system, there was nothing distinctive about it, and the houses were reasonable to buy, real estate dealers would show you certain neighborhoods and not others. You live with whatever there was here, and you just use the town for a bedroom and whatever you wanted to use it for. The town has improved dramatically. It's a different place than it was 50 years ago. And along with that, the level of stress has dramatically risen for all of us. As you listen to the sessions, people have issues in the town now when they didn't care 50 years ago. So the paradox is you care more and you are aggravated more.
Hello. So we talked about classism, class privilege, and conversations like that. So here are some of the things that we covered. We talked about the fact that we have a myth in this country that we are a classless society, and more and more folks are realizing that that is not true. We can see that what is happening with the mainstream conversation, with the economic meltdown, with the Occupy movement, etc. More and more folks are recognizing that, in fact, we have a lot of issues that have to do with class in this country. And the two groups that we had were highly participative. Folks had a lot to say, and it was clear there was a lot more to be said and to be done and places to go from that conversation. So folks want to keep talking about it and do more than talk, but also come up with some solutions to the ways that class and class privilege impacts the community. Specifically, we talked about things like how folks will have assumptions about other people's class based on what they know or what they see about them. So if we know somebody's religion, we might have an assumption about what class they might be in. Their ethnicity, the neighborhood that they live in, the school that they're going to or their kids are going to, the education that they have or the profession that they have. Folks will will think that they know what somebody's value, will assume that they might know what somebody's values might be or what their intelligence might be based on assumptions around class. There was quite a bit of conversation about immigrants in town, and how some folks might have assumptions about what class they're in, what their income might be or their education might be. Some folks talked about the fact that sometimes we confuse education with affluence, and those aren't necessarily the same things. The fact that immigrants may be here and may have property, but may not be allowed to vote, for example, if they're not citizens. So a lot of times with folks who are immigrants, they may not have a voice to represent themselves adequately and to counter some of these stereotypes and assumptions. Some folks talked about the joking and the comments that go on in town based on some of these differences, including ethnicity, race, immigration, etc., etc. Some folks also talked about where we can see it in town. So for example, we might see it in the education system, we might see it in zoning practices, we might see it in the schools that folks are going to. One person even mentioned that we could see it in the historical society in terms of what history we choose to look at and to focus on in Winchester, what we acknowledge and what we forget about in terms of the history of Winchester. So I think that's sort of a summary of the different kinds of things that we talked about in our group. Thank you.
It's a great opportunity when you hear people put it within a historical context, because America as a nation is a nation without memory. We don't have much memory. Americans don't look back. Maybe it's because we all came from somewhere else. But the sense that we have of our past is one that we individually will make up as we go along. And we've always been a nation of immigrants. We've always been a nation that never really accepted or liked the people who were coming here the minute we got our foot here. That sense of be like us or else has always been the driving force in this country. And we do create our own histories, and we the way we are as people. Winchester will create its own history also. Paula?
I was and am pleased to see so many people from Winchester ready to spend a Sunday evening talking about difficult things. I assume that the organization, the Winchester Multicultural Network, was formed to deal with issues that it saw looming, difficult, and needing to be resolved. And so, in the two groups that I met, I had them interrogate and challenge the meaning of multicultural and multicultural and the positives and the negatives of multiculturalism, what it means to have a multicultural society. I think the groups dealt carefully and deeply with the fears and the concerns that so-called citizens and Americans have about the presence of people who are new and people who are different. And I wanted to leave with a group, and with the groups that I met, and I hope that I have, that many of the people who are labeled as immigrants know no other country but this country. And to keep stressing that the first generation is the only and biggest problem to tackle is myopic. We have to realize that we have children of immigrants who know no other country, who will participate, who can bring their skills, who can make sure that the society is rich and interesting. And so I wanted the groups to begin thinking about what the fears are, what are the positives of multiculturalism, what are the negatives, and what the society can do to make immigrants settle and thrive. That should be our, unless we want to cut our noses to spoil our faces, we have to make sure that the people who call this country home, we have to make sure that they settle and that they thrive. If they do, then we all do.
You know, point Paula makes about the second generation. The most popular name among second generation born Latino children in the United States, the first name for girls is Ashley, and for boys it's Kevin. There is something that drives second and third generation people to try to fulfill that American desire, be like us, and they want to be like everybody else. We have no national policy that works about assimilation. We have no idea how we assimilate people, and yet of all the countries in the world, it seems that the United States has a capacity to assimilate better than any other nation. We don't know why, and now it's become a big challenge because we'll be assimilating people of color to a larger extent, and it'll be an interesting challenge. But if you look at the number of intermarriages that are going on in this country, and that will continue going on, someday we'll examine what we do and try to figure out if there was any policy behind it. But if we just go ahead and muddle our way through and somehow manage it. About 60 years ago, Ralph Ellison wrote a book called Invisible Man. You could have taken any immigrant at that time, any hyphenated American, they would have been invisible. America was invisible to all ethnicity and all immigration, all foreign, what they would call foreign people 60 years ago. If there ever were invisible people in the United States 60 years ago, it was people with disabilities. Nobody cared about them, nobody looked at them, nobody wondered about them. They were invisible. So having Bert here today and having a session on this becomes a really meaningful step forward, at least, in how Winchester and the country examines this issue. Bert, you want to tell us what went on?
I started out both sessions by asking, what's fabulous about Winchester? And I got some great responses. You have you have a bookstore everyone seems to be in love with, is that correct? As we learned today, you're on the Guinness World Book of Records for...
Closest railroad station.
And the one thing that struck me in both of the sessions, and I don't know how broad, I don't know that this is broad, sweeping, I think you have your different subgroupings, but you have an incredible sense of community here. And also an incredible sense of community participation and activity. It's been quite a while since I've actually spoken with a group where I got that strong of a sense of, we are the people, we are here, we are together. That was an incredibly powerful statement. And after we talked about what was so fabulous, and I do mean that sincerely, about Winchester, I said, can everyone benefit from it? And then the conversation changed in both groups. And people, it was actually revealed and kind of surprising to me, although I've heard snippets, not only in the groups, but snippets of other conversations I've had with people today, about how late in the game Winchester came to actually do what the law has indeed required them to do for the last 50 years. And 50 to 20 years, depending on which law you're talking about. And that was kind of shocking. So we started asking questions. Why? Why are there buildings that have been built after 1990 that would have fallen under the Americans with Disabilities Act that's having to be accessible to everybody? We're not talking people with disabilities as if they're somehow this separate entity, but everybody. How come that didn't happen here? How come there are buildings that were built while 504, which is the Rehabilitation Act, which required any entity receiving federal funds, any federal funds, had programs and services that were completely accessible to all human beings. And that wasn't implemented here. So we had lots of questions as to why. We had some great discussion about thinking outside the box. We had discussions about businesses. So there was one individual who I asked, we had this conversation about how many businesses here are really not accessible. And one individual garnered a guess, but I think the guess is actually maybe a low ball. I don't know Winchester, so don't throw eggs at me, okay? But she said maybe 50% are accessible. That seems actually kind of low relative to my living in New England area with the older buildings around. That seems kind of low. So if you're that high, that's fabulous. But we weren't sure about that either. A lot of our conversation boiled down to value. And we had, in both groups, I had an extensive conversation about economics. Because the part we often forget, and it's what I hear everywhere, not just here in Winchester, it's what I hear everywhere. You guys are too few and you're too damn expensive. That's what I hear. Whether people want to say it to my face or not, that's what they're thinking. So I took the time in both groups to really talk about, well, wait a minute, you're asking the wrong question. Why is it so expensive? Why are a lot of companies getting away with charging exorbitant prices for services that really, if they were lowered the cost, more people could buy them? I mean, you can make your money either by selling high to a few or low to many. Well, they don't do that in this country. Why? I'm not expensive because it's my fault. I'm expensive because I'm an economic item to a lot of vendors who can make a ton of money off of me. Their margins are huge. They won't tell you that, but they are. And what I'm trying to do with that statement is divert this sense that we, because we're different, inherently cost a hell of a lot of money. It's not us, folks. It's the economic system who are making money off of who we are and our differences. So we had a lot of conversation about leveraging inexpensive ways to change this concept of value that we have around people who are different. Really cheap things like maybe us in a certain location having an evacuation chair, which would be for someone in a wheelchair, but maybe somewhere right in this building, like right outside the revenue office where you have to pay your taxes, as a reminder of how valuable people with disabilities are. We talked about something as cheap and no cost as making sure all the curb cuts are cleaned out of snow after every snowfall. Isn't that a clear statement of what we value? And ultimately, what we value becomes what we expect. Okay? So we had those kind of conversations. I felt really good that we kind of touched on a really broad spectrum. And we went beyond just thinking of those disabled people out there to saying, you know, we're not talking about disability. We're talking about human diversity. It's not those disabled people, it's us. All of us who benefit from this. And I don't say this as a threat, I say this as in a way, to me, a wonderful thing. You all, I can do my Texas thing, y'all, are going to join the ranks, 90% of you, of needing some kind of accessible feature. Now, rather than saying that's such a negative thing, isn't it marvelous that we realize that we're still full human beings? We really are completely full human beings, regardless of what happens to our packaging. It's marvelous we live in a world like that. But I would encourage us here to work a lot harder at embracing that value of and for people with disabilities everywhere, every time.
So I feel like this WIT conference maybe can be rebranded because it is about Winchester in transition, certainly about the ways in which this community, like many other suburban communities, are transitioning from what was once a predominantly white, upper class, suburban community to something much more multicultural than it once was. And that's certainly what this conference is about. I think more than that, this is a conference about community, dialogue, and future action. And so that's what I would hope that our participants take away from today and that viewers take away from their understanding about what we were doing here today, is that we came together to talk, to come together as a community, and then to do something about it.
My name is Helen Babcock, and I'm chair of the Council on Aging, so that sort of brought me here today.
Great. And so my first question is, what did you come in today hoping for?
I guess I have been involved with the Multicultural Network for a number of years, and had gone actually to the first session that they had. And I thought it was a wonderful chance for people to come together and talk about issues. And because I'm so involved with seniors in town, I felt they needed a voice in this particular conversation.
And so in the conversations today, do you feel like there's something that you gained that you can take back to that community?
Yes, I think I went to the session especially on classism, on class, and I felt the discussion was really good, and I will definitely bring that back to the senior community. Also the one on demographics in the town, and those are issues the immigrant issue is still an issue for seniors as well, and for their children and their grandchildren. So it was very good.
Here's the hard question.
Okay.
What is, do you have an action item, some one thing that you're going to do based on what you learned today?
An action item. I feel that I will be much more participatory in events like this. I feel the need to really be with like-minded people who, I think one of the women at the end was saying the same thing, how can we come together and make a change? I feel that my experience in the town helps me to be a catalyst.
Two of my favorite people in the town of Winchester, so tell them your name.
My name's Aziz Abdul, and
my name's Machias Turner.
And so, and how are you part of the Winchester community?
well, we're both a part of Winchester ABC.
Yeah.
And so tell me, Aziz and Machias, what did you come into the conference today hoping for?
Well, I mean, I was hoping to see some, good representatives of the community, willing to learn more about the program, and I was really looking forward to learning more about Winchester Multicultural Network.
And I wanted to see what people thought about the problems in Winchester and how they wanted to address these problems and what their solutions might be to these problems.
And what did you learn?
I mean, I've never been to one of these events before, so it's cool to learn that we have a community of people who are willing to address these problems and come up with solutions. So something outside the Winchester ABC program that I would like to see, I guess.
I actually never realized how many disabled persons there were in the Winchester community.
And so what is something that you're going to do about what you learned today about this newfound sense of community and about the disabled here in the town of Winchester?
I guess share the information I got here with other people outside this meeting, I guess, colleagues, people I talked to, friends, family, and other people in Winchester ABC, maybe ABC program could do something to help.
Yeah, I mean, definitely educate the people in town and clear those street corners.
So I'm going to see you out there with a shovel. Okay, good. And anything else that I haven't asked that you want to add, either about yourselves, about the program that you saw today, or about your own program?
I think we covered everything, I guess. I just, once again, I just like seeing people coming together and addressing the problems that we have to face in Winchester.
Yeah, I really appreciated this whole event. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Devi Narayanan, and I live in Winchester. I've been here for about 3+ years, and I would like to definitely come into the community a little more and be part of the community. That's what I'm wishing for, and that's why I'm here today.
And what did you come into the WIT conference hoping for?
I was curious what it's all about. I really didn't know much about it. I am very much into multicultural network groups because I believe in it. I'm myself not from this country, and I would like to know more about this country and more about the different cultures that's existing in this country. So I really wanted to find out what WIT is all about.
And my next question is, so what did you learn about or gain from today's experience?
I was really amazed. I understand a lot of different kind of people, and I did 2 sessions today. One was about class and one was about demographics, which was something that I'm really concerned about and I really want to learn more about. And I did feel very, very positive about both the classes. And the demographics, who Paula was really good, and she made us understand what are the positives and the negatives of these issues that are existing, and I believe that exists in Winchester too, which some people may or may not believe, but unfortunately I do believe strongly there are a lot of demographic issues here in this town, and I'm here to explore more and support everybody so we can all live in a very happy community here.
And so here's the hard question. What is one thing that you're going to do based on what you learned today?
One thing I learned is I was really interested in how immigrants can voice their opinions, which I was not aware about. and I would like to know more about it. I did not know where I need to go to in this town because I've approached several people, but I did not get answers. However, I did find out that from today's conference that WMCN actually has a scope for this, and we could go and talk to them freely. So I plan to go and talk to them, and I do have a lot of concerns that I would like to be addressed. And I'm going to probably meet with Kathy and the rest of the crew to see if we can get this resolved. Thank you very much.
Anything else that I didn't ask that you want to add?
No, thank you so much, Kathy, for your time, and I really appreciate all your efforts. And I really wish we can make an impact. It's very easy for all of us to discuss and talk more. But however, how are we going to really put this into practice? Because I'm here for some action, and I don't want just to talk. If I get in, I would like to get some results. And I would really appreciate if WMCN and anybody else out there can come and help us and support us and fix this, not only for a particular group but for the whole community, so everybody can have an equitable life in this community. Thank you very much.
And I have been a resident in Winchester since 2002. I have two kids going to elementary school, almost a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. And one of them is going to Morocco school and one is going to Lynch. And I'm very happy with both places.
And so tell me what you came into the WIT conference today hoping for.
Well, there are lots of issues in Winchester regarding demographics. I have been very involved in redistricting process the last year. I've worked very closely with the school committee and the superintendent to find solution to redistricting. I found that despite our concerns about how demographics are changing and how they're changing the makeup of our schools, I felt that there was little understanding about the demographics, little understanding of how this is actually going to impact our schools in the future. As a former ELL teacher and a speech-language pathologist, I know for sure that when you are grouping a group of people or students who come from a culture other than the American culture, you're decreasing the chances to integrate and assimilate in the society. And the real concern about that is not the elementary schools, it's actually the transition to middle school and high school, where you're having two groups of people where now you have to do more work to get the transition going. And also just to learn as an immigrant, I feel that I don't know much about the school system in the United States, but if you expose me or if you give me the chance to be with the mainstream families, I learn very quickly. But if you don't give me that chance, I might not be able to learn as quickly as possible, and that's what I worry about. And also, a group of us have been very vocal about definitely our neighborhoods being subjectively selected, and we were not given any reason to why. The map that was created by two school committee members clearly didn't give us a good rationale why you're moving people who live 0.4 miles from two schools to a school that is 2 miles away from us. And unfortunately, I've been listening to lots of discussions where, people think we are not moving because Lynch is a bad school. The reality, that's not what we're trying. Lynch is a great school, but you cannot group what we call high-need students in one school. That's what we're actually against. We are against having inequity in our schools. And the school committee members had a golden chance to unite Winchester by choosing alternative plans. But unfortunately, they chose not to do that. So I came here to hear what the community understands and to hear what are some of the misconceptions or I hear so many stories. And, this is a time for us to have a discussion. I call it a good discussion, because eventually it's going to help all Winchester, not just people like us. So.
Yeah. And so let me combine my next two questions then. So, what did you learn about today at this conference, and what is the one thing that you're going to do based on what you learned about today at this conference, given that those are your concerns?
Sure. I went to the multicultural and the class sessions, and they were very, very informative in the sense that you learn from the other people because, I have different definitions, but then you hear other points, and then you see where people are coming from. And it was an eye-opening. And it was good discussion, and I think that's what it is about. This is about good discussions for everyone to understand what the real issues are. And again, this is to help all Winchester, not just us.
Absolutely. And anything else you want to add, Salma?
I just thank you so much. This is my first year. I'm looking forward to coming every year and meeting people and sharing ideas. There are definitely positives to people from multicultural background, but there are challenges, and I'm learning about the challenges as well to help so that it's a smooth interaction between different groups. That's my goal. Okay?
So I feel like this WIT conference maybe can be rebranded because it is about Winchester in transition, certainly about the ways in which this community, like many other suburban communities, are transitioning from what was once a predominantly white, upper class suburban community to something much more multicultural than it once was. And that's certainly what this conference is about. I think more than that, this is a conference about community, dialogue, and future action. And so that's what I would hope that our participants take away from today and that viewers take away from their understanding about what we were doing here today, is that we came together to talk, to come together as a community, and then to do something about it.